Brother claimed inheritance was stolen. Probate court had cameras and showed him taking mom's jewelry clear. My brother is standing up in the probate courtroom like it's his personal stage, face flushed, jaw working, pointing straight at me while the bailiff tells him twice to sit down. His voice is loud enough that people in the back row turn their heads like they're watching a trial on TV instead of the sad, fluorescent reality of a Tuesday morning docket. She took it, he says, stabbing the air with his finger. She took mom's jewelry, and she's been hiding it. She stole my inheritance. My stomach drops, so hard it feels like my rib cage is empty. I can feel my pulse in my fingertips, and my hands are clenched in my lap like if I let go, they'll shake too obviously. My attorney leans toward me and whispers, "Don't react," but it's hard not to when the person screaming is the same person who helped me pick out mom's coffin 3 weeks ago. The judge's voice cuts through the noise, calm, tired, practiced. "Mr. Harlan, one more outburst, and you'll be removed." The bailiff takes a step closer to my brother's chair. My brother sits, but only halfway, like he's preparing to spring back up. His knee is bouncing so fast the whole table trembles. Across from us, the estate attorney, mom's attorney, technically, who is now the executor's counsel, slides a black USB drive onto the clerk's desk. The screen in the courtroom flickers to life, and suddenly it's not about who says what in a family group chat. It's about what the cameras saw. My brother's eyes dart to the monitor, and then to me, and for the first time since he started this campaign, I watch fear appear on his face, quick and sharp like a crack in glass. It was a Thursday night when Mom died, and the house felt wrong immediately. Too quiet, too still, like everything inside it was holding its breath, waiting for someone to say what happened out loud. I remember the hospice nurse folding up her supplies with this gentle efficiency, like she was trying to keep the room from collapsing. I remember the sound of the zipper on the body bag, which I didn't know would be so loud. I remember my brother, Ethan, standing in the hallway staring at the family photos like he didn't recognize the people in them. If you'd asked me then, I would have said we were on the same side. We were grieving. We were siblings. We were going to get through this. Mom's illness was long enough that everyone had time to become a different version of themselves. She got diagnosed, then she did the treatments, then the treatments stopped working, then we were measuring her days by what she could still tolerate. In those months, I became the person who managed appointments, medications, insurance calls, and the endless little emergencies that come with someone fading out in slow motion. Ethan became the person who stopped by when he could, which meant weekends when he felt like it, with Starbucks and a forced cheerfulness that made Mom smile even when she was tired. Our cousins called me so strong, while not offering to sit with her for an hour. Our aunt posted inspirational quotes about family. Everyone had a role. Mom picked me as executor because I was the one she trusted to actually do it. That sounds harsh, but it's the truth. She told me in her kitchen one afternoon, while she was still strong enough to stand and stir soup. The window was open and a neighbor's lawnmower was droning, and she said, "I need you to handle things when I'm gone." I laughed like she was being dramatic, and she looked at me over her glasses and said, "I'm serious. Ethan will make a mess." Not because she didn't love him, because she knew him. Ethan was always the one who needed something. Alone, a favor. Someone to smooth over something he'd said. He wasn't evil. He was just always reaching. Like life was a vending machine that kept eating his money, and he was convinced the next person had to shake it hard enough for him. After Mom died, the first week was a blur of casseroles, phone calls, and paperwork. People think grief looks like crying, but for me it looked like printing death certificates at 2 a.m. and trying to remember Mom's social security number, while my brain kept showing me her hands shaking as she tried to drink water. Ethan came over the day after we got back from the funeral home. He stood in the living room and said, "So what happens now?" Like we were talking about a renovation timeline, not her entire life. "We have to file the will," I said. "There's a process." He nodded too quickly. Right. I just mean the stuff. Her jewelry, the rings, the watch Dad gave her. I don't want anything to disappear. That was the first time my stomach tightened. Not because the question was crazy, sentimental items matter, but because of how he said disappear. Like it was already happening. Like it was already my fault. Mom didn't have a huge estate. She had the house, modest, paid off. She had some savings. She had a small life insurance policy that mostly covered the funeral. She had her jewelry, a few pieces she wore often, and a few more valuable things she kept tucked away. A gold bracelet from her grandmother. Dad's old watch. Her wedding ring set, which she hadn't worn since Dad died, but kept anyway, wrapped in tissue in a small velvet box. There was also a little collection of pieces Ethan and I gave her over the years. Birthstone necklace, earrings, that sort of thing. Not a treasure chest, but enough that people would fight. Mom's will was straightforward. House gets sold. Proceeds split evenly between Ethan and me after debts. Cash split evenly. Personal property to be divided by mutual agreement, which is legal language that basically translates to, good luck, kids. We did what people do. We made a day to go through the house together. Not right away. We waited 2 weeks because the idea of opening her closet made my throat close. But eventually it had to happen. Ethan came with his girlfriend, Marla, which I didn't love because this was not a spectator event, but Ethan said she's family, and I didn't have the energy to argue. My partner, Sam, came with me. Sam is the kind of person who remembers to bring water bottles and tissues without making it feel like a big production. They also know when to stand behind me quietly like a wall. We started with obvious things, kitchen stuff, linens, books. Ethan kept circling back to the bedroom like a shark that smelled blood. Where's the jewelry? He asked twice. We should inventory it. He said inventory like he'd done this 100 times, like he wasn't the guy who lost his own car title for 3 months and blamed the DMV. It's in the safe, I said, because Mom had told me where it was. The safe was one of those small fireproof boxes tucked behind towels in the linen closet. Mom gave me the combination a year ago when she started forgetting little things. I had written it down and put it in my locked drawer at home, because I'm apparently the type of person who keeps a locked drawer. Ethan's eyes sharpened. You have the combination? Mom gave it to me, I said. He stared at me for a beat too long. Then he looked away and said, okay. I should have stopped right there and insisted we open it together. I should have taken out my phone and taken photos. I should have treated it like evidence. But grief makes you soft in the wrong places. I still wanted to believe we could do this like normal people, like siblings who love the same woman. We didn't open the safe that day. It was late, everyone was tired, Ethan was getting snippy, and I said we'd do it next time with the attorney present, so no one could accuse anyone of anything. Ethan's face twitched when I said accuse, and he said, sure, in a voice that didn't sound sure. 2 days later, I went back to Mom's house alone to pick up mail and water the plants because I couldn't bear to watch them die in a house that already felt like a tomb. When I walked in, I noticed the bathroom light was on. I know this sounds small, but it hit me like a punch because I've been obsessively turning every light off when I left, like controlling that tiny thing could keep the rest from falling apart. I walked through the house slowly, keys between my fingers. Hello. I called, feeling stupid because it was midday and the neighborhood was quiet. No answer. The back door was locked. The windows were shut. The light was on because someone had been there. My skin went hot. I went straight to the linen closet. The towels were shifted. The safe was still there, but it was angled differently, like someone had pulled it out and put it back. I crouched and touched it. The metal felt cold. I didn't have the combination with me. I couldn't open it. I just stared at it, my brain trying to catch up with what my body already knew. I called Ethan. He didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. I texted, were you at Mom's house today? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then no. Why? I stared at my screen like it might tell me the truth if I looked hard enough. Then I did the thing therapy taught me years ago. I asked a direct question. Did you take anything from the safe? His reply came fast. What the hell? No. Why would you even ask me that? Because the bathroom light was on. Because the towels are moved. Because I can feel my chest tightening in a way it only does when someone is lying to my face. I didn't text that. I said, I'm going to have the attorney inventory everything. And he said, you're being paranoid. Grief is making you weird. That was the first time he used that word. Weird. Like I was the problem for noticing the safe looked touched. The next day, our aunt called me. Her voice was sugary with concern. Honey, she said, Ethan told me you accused him of stealing. I asked him if he took something because someone was in the house, I said. My hand was sweating, phone slick. Well, she sighed, he's really hurt. He said you're acting hostile, and your mother would hate this. There it was. The emotional leash. Mom would hate this. The phrase that always meant, shut up, keep the peace, swallow it. I'm not hostile, I said carefully. I'm trying to handle the estate correctly. A pause. Then she said, he said you've changed since you got with Sam. He thinks Sam is influencing you. Sam was sitting on the couch across from me, reading an email, and I felt this flash of rage so sharp it made my vision blur. Not because she insulted Sam, but because she was trying to make my boundaries into someone else's manipulation. I said, this is between Ethan and me. My aunt huffed. Families help families, she said, and hung up. Within 48 hours, the family group chat exploded. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly invested in the moral integrity of my soul. Ethan posted something vague on Facebook, something like, funny how money changes people. Be careful who you trust. People commented hearts and praying and stay strong. I sat on my bed and felt like I was going to throw up. Not because I cared what strangers thought, but because my mother had just died and my brother was turning her funeral leftovers into a PR campaign. The thing is, I didn't know for sure he took anything. I knew someone had been in the house. I knew he had a key. I knew he was already planting the idea that things could disappear. But knowing and proving are different. I didn't want to accuse him without proof. I didn't want to become the villain in a story he wrote. So I did what you're supposed to do when you're executor and you can't trust someone. I called the estate attorney. His name was Mr. Patel. He had kind eyes and the posture of someone who spent decades listening to people argue over dead relative stuff. When I told him about the safe, he didn't gasp or act shocked. He just nodded slowly and said, we'll do a formal inventory, and we'll secure the property. Secure, I repeated, embarrassed that it hadn't occurred to me earlier. Locks change, he said gently, and if there are valuables, we document them. Photos, descriptions, receipts, if available. I swallowed. I think Ethan already took something. Mr. Patel didn't call Ethan a monster. He didn't tell me I was overreacting. He said, do you have a home security system? I blinked. Mom does. She installed cameras after the neighbor's garage got broken into last year. There was a Ring doorbell and 2 interior cameras. One pointed at the back door, one in the hallway facing the bedrooms. Mom mostly used them to check if packages arrived. I had the login because she'd asked me to help her once when it kept sending notifications. I hadn't opened the app since she died because it felt creepy, like spying on an empty house. Mr. Patel said, check the footage. I left his office with my hands trembling, not from fear of what I'd find, but from the horrible clarity of realizing I might actually see my brother doing it. Seeing changes you. It makes the betrayal physical. That night, Sam sat next to me on the couch while I opened the camera app. The screen showed the front door, the porch, the street. It was quiet. It looked innocent, like it didn't contain anything that could break my family apart. I scrolled back to the time I'd noticed the bathroom light. The app loaded, buffering little spinning circle. My throat was so tight it hurt to swallow. Then the video played. At 11:07 a.m., Ethan walked up to Mom's front door. He wasn't alone. Marla was behind him, holding her phone like she was already recording something. Ethan looked around, then leaned close to the camera and, this part made my stomach flip, covered it with his palm for a second, like he remembered it existed. Like he didn't want it to see his face, but it still caught enough. His jacket sleeve, the way he hesitated, the way he pushed the door open. The next clip was from the hallway camera. Grainy, but clear enough. Ethan walked down the hall toward Mom's bedroom. He moved like he'd done 100 times. He went into her room, disappeared for a minute, then came back out holding something small in his hand. He glanced up at the camera, directly at it, then looked away quickly like a kid caught cheating. He went into the linen closet. I couldn't see inside, but I saw his shoulders hunch, saw him pull something out, saw him set it down low. The safe. He crouched. His head dipped. His hands moved. Then he stood up holding a velvet box. I could barely breathe. My ears were ringing. Sam's hand was on my shoulder, steadying me, but my body felt like it was floating above itself. Ethan opened the velvet box right there in the hallway, like he couldn't wait. He tilted it toward himself and took out the contents, something sparkly that caught the camera's light. He looked at it for half a second, then stuffed it into his pocket. Then he walked back into Mom's bedroom and came out with a small zip pouch, the kind Mom used to keep earrings in when she traveled. He put that in his other pocket. Marla appeared in the hallway, holding the bathroom door open like she was keeping watch. She didn't look startled. She looked bored, like this was routine. Then, at 11:23 a.m., Ethan walked out the front door. The doorbell camera caught him adjusting his jacket, pockets bulging. He smiled at Marla, and she laughed at something he said, and then they walked to his car and left. I sat there for a long time after the video ended, staring at my own reflection in the black TV screen because I couldn't make myself hit play again. I felt sick. Not dramatic sick. Actual cold sweat nausea. My brother didn't just take jewelry. He took it while Mom's house still smelled like her lotion. He took it while her hospice paperwork was still on the kitchen counter. He took it while I was still waking up in the night, thinking I heard her calling my name. Mr. Patel watched the footage the next day. He didn't swear. He didn't raise his voice. He just said, "We'll file a petition with the probate court." I said, "I don't want him arrested." Mr. Patel looked at me for a moment, like he'd heard this sentence 1,000 times. "I understand," he said, "but you're the executor. You have a legal duty to protect the estate. If you ignore theft, you could be held responsible." I hated that word, duty. It made it sound like I was choosing conflict when I was actually choosing not to be complicit. We sent Ethan a formal letter first. Mr. Patel recommended it. It requested the immediate return of all estate property removed without authorization, specifically jewelry and sentimental items. It included still images from the footage. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't accusatory. It was just factual. Cold. Ethan called me within 20 minutes of receiving it. He was screaming before I could even say hello. "Are you insane?" he yelled. "You're trying to ruin me." "I saw the footage," I said, voice shaking despite my best effort. "Ethan, I saw you." A pause, tiny. Then he switched tactics, like flipping a channel. "I was protecting it," he said, suddenly calmer. "I didn't want you to steal it." I laughed, one sharp sound I didn't recognize as mine. "You took it and then told everyone I stole it." "You're twisting it," he snapped. "You always twist things. You and your lawyer." Mom would be disgusted. There was again. Mom would be disgusted. He was using her like a shield. I said, "Return it." "I don't have it," he said immediately. I felt my skin go cold. "What do you mean you don't have it?" "It's safe," he insisted. "Don't worry about it." "Where?" I said, and my voice was flat now, because something in me had shut off. "Where is it?" He swore. "You're not going to get it, okay? Not if you're going to keep acting like this." I hung up, not out of drama, out of survival, because if I stayed on that call, I would have said something I couldn't take back. The court date came faster than I expected. Probate moves slowly until it doesn't. And then suddenly you are in a courtroom with your mother's name on the case file and your brother's voice echoing off beige walls. Ethan showed up in a suit that didn't fit. His tie was too shiny. Marla sat behind him, arms crossed, chewing gum like it was a movie. Our aunt came too, which made my chest tighten. She sat on Ethan's side, eyes fixed on me with that disappointed look she'd been practicing for weeks. In the hallway before we went in, Ethan cornered me by the water fountain. "You can still stop this," he hissed, close enough that I could smell mint on his breath. "Just tell your lawyer to drop it. We can handle it ourselves." "We tried," I said. His eyes narrowed. "You always have to be in control." I wanted to say I didn't want control. I wanted peace. I wanted my brother to stop stealing from our dead mother. But it felt like trying to explain gravity to someone committed to floating. So I just said, "Return it." He leaned closer. "I swear to God," he said, voice low, "if you do this, you won't have a family left." And the crazy part is, for a split second, that scared me more than the theft, because it hit the old part of my brain that equated family with survival, even when family was the thing hurting me. Then the courtroom doors opened, and the bailiff called our case, and we walked in. Now, in the moment where Ethan is accusing me in front of a judge, I can see how hard he's trying to keep his story alive. He's been telling it so long, he probably believes it. Or maybe he knows it's a lie, and he's just desperate. The judge looks at Mr. Patel. "Counsel," she says, "you indicated you have evidence regarding the alleged missing property." "Yes, Your Honor," Mr. Patel says. He doesn't look at Ethan. He looks at the judge and speaks like he's reading a grocery list. "We have security camera footage from the decedent's residence showing Mr. Harlan entering the property without authorization and removing items from a safe and bedroom area. We also have still images and time stamps corroborating the footage." Ethan makes a noise like a laugh, but it's thin. No, he blurts. "That's not what it shows." The judge holds up a hand. "We'll see," she says. The video starts. The courtroom monitor shows the front porch. Mom's porch. Her wind chimes are moving in the corner of the frame, and for a second I hate seeing them because it feels like she's there and not there at the same time. The timestamp reads 11:07 a.m. Ethan appears, walking up, covering the camera with his hand. A couple people in the courtroom shift in their seats. The judge's expression doesn't change, but her eyes sharpen slightly. Then it switches to the hallway camera, and there he is again, walking toward Mom's bedroom with the same casual stride I've seen 1,000 times. Only now it looks different. Now it looks like someone who thinks he has a right to take. When he crouches in the linen closet, the courtroom is silent. When he stands and the velvet box is visible, I hear my aunt suck in a breath. When he opens it and removes something sparkly, my stomach clenches so hard it hurts. When he shoves it into his pocket, the judge leans forward slightly, like she's making sure she's seeing correctly. Ethan's face goes red. He starts shaking his head fast. "That's not." He begins, but the bailiff steps closer and he stops. The clip of him leaving shows his pockets bulging. The judge looks at him over her glasses. "Mr. Harlan," she says, voice still calm, but colder now. "Do you dispute that the person in this footage is you?" Ethan's mouth opens, closes, opens again. "It's me," he says finally, like it's painful to admit his own name. "And do you dispute that you removed items from the safe and the residence?" The judge continues, "Without the executor's authorization?" Ethan's eyes flick to my aunt, to Marla, to the floor. "I was protecting it," he says again, louder, as if volume can turn theft into virtue. "She was going to take it. I didn't trust her." The judge's expression doesn't soften. "This court does not operate on feelings of trust," she says. "This court operates on law. The executor has a fiduciary duty to the estate. You removed property. That is not a protective measure. That is conversion." Ethan jerks in his chair. "I'm her son," he says, voice cracking. "It's mine too." "It may be," the judge says, "after proper distribution. Not before. Not unilaterally. Not secretly." My throat burns. I'm not crying, but my eyes feel hot. I keep staring at the table because if I look at Ethan, I'll see the face of the boy who used to sit beside me in the back seat and share candy, and it will make me feel weak in a way I can't afford right now. Mr. Patel speaks again. "Your Honor, we are requesting an order compelling the immediate return of all items removed, an accounting of any items transferred or sold, and attorney's fees to be paid from Mr. Harlan's distributive share due to the unnecessary litigation caused by his actions." Ethan whips his head toward Mr. Patel. "Sold?" He repeats, and there's a flicker of panic so raw I almost miss it. Then he catches himself. "No," he says quickly. "No one sold anything." The judge's gaze fixes on him. "Where are the items currently located?" Ethan's jaw works. "Safe place." "That is not an answer," the judge says, and her voice finally has an edge. "This is a court order situation, Mr. Harlan. You will provide the location, or you will be held in contempt. Contempt can include fines and jail time. Do you understand?" Marla's gum stops chewing. My aunt's hands twist in her lap. Ethan swallows hard. "There, at Marla's apartment," he says, almost inaudible. Marla's head snaps toward him like she can't believe he said it out loud. The judge doesn't look at Marla. She looks at Ethan. "And are all items intact?" "Yes," he says too quickly. The judge nods once, like she's heard enough. "The court orders the immediate return of all estate property removed from the decedent's residence," she says. You will return these items to the executor and counsel's office by 5 p.m. tomorrow. You will provide a written inventory of all items removed, including any items transferred or disposed of. If any items are missing, this court will consider surcharges against your distributive share and referral for criminal investigation. Ethan's face goes pale. Criminal, he croaks. The judge's eyes are flat. You cannot steal from an estate and then accuse the executor of theft. That is a serious matter. Additionally, this court awards reasonable attorney's fees to be paid from your share. Your behavior created this proceeding. Ethan looks like someone punched him without touching him. His mouth is slightly open. He keeps blinking. The judge turns to me. Ms. Harlan, she says, and hearing myself addressed that way in court makes me feel like a stranger in my own story. You are reminded to continue your duties as executor impartially. Document the return. Photograph items. Secure the residence. I nod because my voice is gone. The hearing ends. People stand up. Chairs scrape. The bailiff calls the next case like our family just got ripped open in public, and now everyone's moving on to the next tragedy on the schedule. In the hallway, my aunt rushes toward Ethan, grabbing his arm. Ethan, she whispers fiercely, what did you do? He jerks away. I did what I had to, he snaps, but his voice is weaker now, like the air leaked out of him. She turns on me. Are you happy? She demands. Eyes shiny. You embarrassed him. I stare at her, stunned by the audacity. He stole from Mom, I say, and my voice cracks on Mom. My aunt's face shifts, like she wants to argue, but the footage is still playing in her head. He's struggling, she says finally, like that a magic phrase that turns consequences into cruelty. So was Mom, I say, and it comes out colder than I intend. And he still did it. Ethan walks past us without looking at me. Marla follows him, hissing something under her breath. The sound of their footsteps fades down the hallway, and I feel this hollow space open in my chest that isn't victory. It's loss. It's realizing my mother is gone, and now even the memory of her has been dragged through something ugly. The next day, Ethan showed up at Mr. Patel's office with a cardboard box that smelled faintly like cigarette smoke. He didn't look at me when he handed it over. He just dropped it on the conference table like it was trash. Inside were velvet pouches, tangled chains, a couple of earrings missing their backs. Mom's wedding ring set was there, thank God, but the bracelet from her grandmother was not. Mr. Patel's assistant laid everything out on a clean white cloth like a crime lab. We took photos. We made a list. We compared it to Mom's notes, because of course Mom had notes tucked in a recipe book, a small handwritten list of important pieces with little descriptions like gold bracelet, class stick sometimes. That line made my throat tighten so hard I had to look away. Where's the bracelet? Mr. Patel asked Ethan. Ethan shrugged, eyes on the carpet. I don't know, he muttered. You don't know, I repeated, and my voice rose despite me trying to keep it even. That bracelet was from Grandma. Mom wore it on holidays. Ethan finally looked at me, and his eyes were hard with something like resentment. Maybe you should have guarded it better, he said. Sam's hand went to my back, steadying, but it didn't stop the surge of anger that made my whole face hot. You took it, I said. You literally took it on camera, and you're blaming me for not guarding it. Ethan's nostrils flared. He looked at Mr. Patel like he wanted an ally. He didn't get one. Mr. Harlan, Mr. Patel said calmly, the court ordered a full accounting. If an item is missing, you need to explain what happened to it. If it was sold, gifted, lost, you need to state that. I don't know is not compliant. Ethan's jaw clenched. He glanced at Marla, who had stayed in the lobby because apparently she'd had enough of being involved now that it wasn't convenient. And then he said, I pawned it. The room went silent in a way that felt like pressure in my ears. I stared at him, waiting for him to say he was joking, waiting for him to take it back. You pawned Mom's bracelet, I said, and my voice sounded far away. He shrugged again, but this time it was defensive, like a shield. I was going to buy it back, he said. I needed cash. It was temporary. Temporary. Like the word gift, like the word protection. Words he used to make theft sound like a loan. My hands shook so badly, I had to press them flat on the table. I thought about Mom's wrist, thin and papery near the end. I thought about how she'd rotate jewelry when she got tired of looking at her hospital bracelet, like adding something pretty could distract her from the reality of her body failing. I thought about her list in the recipe book, the clasp that stuck sometimes, the way she remembered details even when she was fading. "You pawned it," I said again, quieter, while she was barely cold. Ethan's face contorted. "Don't say it like that," he snapped, and for a second, I saw the part of him that couldn't bear the truth even as he did the thing. "You act like I'm some monster. You don't know what I'm dealing with." "Then deal with it without selling Mom's jewelry," I said, and this time there was no softness left. Mr. Patel documented the statement. He asked for the pawn shop information. Ethan refused at first, then realized refusal wasn't an option with court orders attached. He scribbled a name and address on a legal pad like he was writing a grocery list, not the location of an heirloom he'd traded for quick money. After that, the rest of the estate process became what it should have been from the beginning. Formal, documented, boring. Locks changed, keys collected, inventory lists, receipts, emails instead of phone calls. Sam helped me box up Mom's clothes, and I cried into a sweater that still smelled like her perfume, and it felt like a private kind of grief that Ethan had stolen the option of sharing. Maya stopped calling for a while. Then she called one afternoon and said, stiffly, I didn't know. Which wasn't an apology, but it was something. She asked if I would reconsider making things so legal. I told her it was already legal. Ethan made it that way when he chose the pawn shop over our mother's memory. The strangest part was how quickly the family narrative shifted once the court footage existed. People who had been vague posting about betrayal stopped posting. Cousins who'd sent me snippy messages went quiet. My dad, who had stayed mostly out of it because his coping mechanism is avoidance, showed up at my apartment one evening with a bag of takeout and sat at my kitchen table like he didn't know what to do with his hands. I saw the video, he said finally, voice low. I waited. He rubbed his forehead. I didn't think he'd do that. I did, I said, and it came out sharper than I meant, but I couldn't undo years of being told my instincts were dramatic. My dad flinched slightly. Then he sighed. Your mother trusted you, he said. I should have trusted you too. It wasn't a sweeping apology. It wasn't a movie moment. But it was the first time my dad admitted I wasn't just being difficult. I nodded because I didn't know what else to do with that small, late piece of validation. Ethan didn't speak to me for months after the hearing. He told people I turned him in, even though it was probate court, not a police station, and the only person who turned him in was the camera he forgot existed. He told people I chose money over family, which was rich coming from the guy who pawned a bracelet. When he finally texted me, it wasn't an apology. It was, you didn't have to humiliate me like that. I stared at that message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. He only wanted to explain, to soothe, to say, I didn't want this. The Numi knew the truth. I didn't humiliate him. He humiliated himself and wanted me to carry the shame for him like I always had. So I typed one sentence. You did this. Not me. Then I blocked him again because I'm not interested in cycling through the same conversation until I'm exhausted enough to give him what he wants. We recovered some of the pawned items. Not all. The bracelet was gone by the time we got there. The pawn shop owner shrugged and said it sold quickly. It felt like losing Mom again in a small, unnecessary way. Like someone ripping a page out of a book and saying it wasn't important. I still have Mom's wedding ring set. It sits in my dresser in the same velvet box, wrapped in tissue like she had it. Sometimes I take it out and hold it in my palm, feeling the weight, the cold metal warming against my skin. It doesn't make me feel triumphant. It makes me feel sad and also strangely steady. Because it's proof that my memory is real, that what happened, that I didn't imagine the way my brother's eyes flicked to the camera, the way he stuffed the jewelry into his pocket like it was nothing. My family still says things like, it's a shame how things turned out, in that passive voice that avoids responsibility. They say, Ethan made mistakes, like the mistakes accidentally walked to a pawn shop. They say, maybe one day you two will work it out, like working it out is my duty no matter how many times he shows me who he is. Therapy didn't make me cold. It didn't make me cruel. It made me stop pretending a crime is just family drama because calling it what it is makes people uncomfortable. It made me stop sacrificing my reality so other people could keep their version of the story intact. And if my family thinks that makes me worse, if they think boundaries and documentation and refusing to be the designated absorber of chaos is some kind of personality defect, then they're not actually grieving the old me. They're grieving the convenience of me.